Hi, in this video I'm going to be showing you how I made Angron's rocky base. Hello everybody, and as you can see I use milliput and soft Fimo oven baked clay. So I try to have like an equal ratio of the three parts. Obviously milliput is a two-part putty, and the darker of the two is the hardener. So as you can see, I'm just mixing the two together so I get a complete mix. So just want to remind everyone to subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop a comment if you want, and make sure that you ring that bell so you don't miss out on any future content. So with the Fimo you have to work it for a couple of minutes because it is quite hard, and as you can see I'm just like squishing it down and sort of working it into sort of a flat thin piece. So once I'd worked it for a bit and it had become a lot easier to use, I sort of flatten it out and then I do the same with the milliput, and I'm going to put them together and start folding them together. If you find that the milliput is sticking to your gloves, just add a little bit of water and it'll sort of stop it from sticking. So as you can see here, I've kind of making like a sandwich of the two clays, well, the putty and the clay, and what I want to do is sort of squish it together a little bit, not too much so it's mixing, but so that you create these thin layers of the clay and the putty on top of each other. And then you want to continue folding this for about 4 or 5 times, or until you're happy enough with the end result. I had on that day made 2 batches of clay. This first batch was baked at 110 degrees for 10 minutes, which I think is not long enough. The second one I baked it at the same temperature for 20 minutes and it kind of turned out a lot better, so I would go for the second one. Just be careful when you bring it out the oven because it is hot. I obviously took my latex gloves off because I didn't want them to melt, and I've got a Tupperware tub to one side for all the pieces. Using a butter knife, I sort of wedge it in and sort of like snap parts off the block. You can use a craft knife, but what you're going to find is the craft knife will cut and give a smooth, clean cut, and that's not what really you're after. You want it to break it, so you snap all of the individual thin layers to create that rock-like texture. I'm having to use the towel to hold it because this really was warm and it was burning my fingers at one point. You do have to work fast at this point because obviously the cooler it starts getting, the harder it gets, and the harder it gets, the more difficult it is to break it apart. So once you broke everything apart, you'll be left with lots of little bits like this. Like I said, I had made 2 batches of pieces with some extra pieces of clay at the end. I only filmed me doing it once. In the future, I'll get some more Fimo and some more milliput, and I'll make a load of this. So I'll always have a little Tupperware box full of little bits of putty clay, rock type stuff. So here is where I'm going to start actually making the base itself. I'd had a little bit of an inclination that maybe this wasn't going to work and I might not have enough clay. You can see Angron's base just at the top of the screen. So I had worked out that I didn't really have enough to do what I wanted to do. So I got the great idea that I would bulk the base out with some corkboard and then put the putty clay mix over the top of that to sort of like build it up. You will see that that didn't actually work either. So as you can see, I'm sort of positioning the corkboard into position to sort of get a rough shape of what I want. Hindsight is a wonderful thing, and if I was to do this again, I wouldn't use the corkboard. I would make sure I had enough putty to do the shape that I originally wanted to do. So I start super gluing the cork down. Now you can, if you really want to, use the cork and then put the putty over the top. There's nothing stopping you, but for the initial idea I had, the base ended up a little bit too fat and a little bit too high in areas, and that would have been better. Well, the end result would have been so much better if I hadn't have used the cork. So now I'm going to start positioning the putty onto the cork and try to build up the initial shape that I wanted. You see me every now and again put this piece of plastic onto the base. I had the idea of wanting to use that to mount the foot onto it. I get rid of that in a few minutes time when I realise it probably isn't going to work. I continued making this video and showing the process because I think it's really cool to see how things can sort of change, even from the initial idea when you realise things aren't going according to plan. So this is me just checking to see if Angron's at the right sort of shape, and the initial idea was to have the axe off the base itself. It was at this stage that I realised I had messed up. I had not enough putty to do what I wanted to do, even with the corkboard. So, Amazon we go. Yeah, let's just order some more putty. The next day that my putty arrived, and we can continue where I left off. So making a complete new batch, now I had enough putty. I wanted to really sort of bulk out what the shape and the sort of silhouette of the base would be. I had an idea in my head, and I just had to now try to get that idea to fit what I'd originally done the day before. So just using little bits of putty at the time, I put it on and flatten it and smooth it in, and it kind of looks like a point at the end, but you'll see how that develops. So I'm just bulking up the front because I know that this part is going to need to be slightly more raised because of the way Angron is positioned with his feet, or hooves. So again, what I'd done is I'd left it for about an hour to sort of harden a little bit. You can see where I'd sort of pulled putty out and sort of repositioned it, and now what I'm doing is taking the sort of the chippings and starting to position them to where I want them. You can just push these down into the clay. It should still be quite soft even after about an hour, but a little bit of super glue just to sort of mount them where you want them. So after going all the way around the base, positioning the chippings where I want it, you can get to see the sort of end result. Here you see me just gluing in a piece of rock slate just to sort of bulk out the side a little bit. It's kind of sort of just to give it a little bit more of interest. Now what I'm doing is just going around and filling in the gaps. You can see where I've also added some skulls and things like that. This is just decorative detail. But what I'm doing here is just getting some putty, put it in between the pieces of chipping, and just using a metal tool, just roughing it up and smoothing it out. This is one will sort of bond everything together, but it also will hide the sort of structure underneath all of this, which is basically just putty squished together into a big blob. What you can see me here is using a piece of the chipping with the rough texture that it has and just pushing into the wet putty to sort of give that texture. You can actually see where I've positioned the putty on the two parts where Angron's hooves are going to be. What I've done is I put that there, let it sort of dry for a little bit, and then pushed Angron's hooves into it to sort of make an indentation of where his final positioning would be. This is a chunky base and it weighs quite a lot, so Angron isn't going to be falling over anytime soon. And here it is, done. All I need to do now is just add the gravel and base to it. So that's the video, everybody. That is Angron's base. Pretty much once this is done, I left it to dry and then just added the gravel and stuff, and it taken about a good couple of hours for it to fully dry. And then what I'll be doing is I'll be putting some pins in where his feet go into Angron itself, just to basically mount him onto the base properly. So I hope you enjoyed that. It was definitely an experience. So it's didn't 100% come out the way I wanted it to. If I could do it again, I would, but I'm not going to. So it's kind of sort of growing on me now. I'm happy enough with the way it ended. So I think it'll look really good when it's going to be painted up, and that'll be in the next part for the base. That'll be in part 2. We should be out probably in the next week or so. And yes, but Angron is coming along really well. He's almost finished. If you've been watching my streams, the process for him has been obviously done over the live streams as well, so it's really, really good. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed making it. And yeah, so subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop a comment, and ring that bell, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks very much. Goodbye.